But I don't know yet.
Have you guys found a place, Ken?
We have an apartment which we've had for a few months now because our son and our grandson, which is one of the main reasons we're going. They lived there for about 6 or 8 weeks while they were buying a house. So we can afford to kind of take our time. Mm-hmm. Although living in an apartment is something that Nancy and I haven't done for, close to 40 years. But I think we can manage it for a few months while we hunt and find a place that works well for us. It's been tough to stand on the deck and look out on the field and the garden and realize that, I'm not going to have my fingers in that clay anymore. But at the same time, I think both of us realized that there was only so much farming left in us, before we were just worn out.
So I have been advised we are live now, so hopefully we should be on YouTube. I know we had someone on earlier who was wondering why we weren't on YouTube yet. So the answer is we were not live, but we are now broadcasting live.
Okay.
So I am going to check in. Our town clerk is supposed to be joining us to swear in our one of our new members and our members who have been reelected. Mike, I'm going to ask you if you can to turn. Actually, I can't tell you. That must just be your photo. Okay.
Ken, I know what you're going through because 8 or 9 years ago now, I moved from Maine and I had lived in Maine all my life and in the same town all my life. And I'm up to 68 now. So that was quite a long time to be in that area. And we rented when we came down here. That was the smartest thing to do. Then we looked around for a permanent place and we had a whole year to do it. And you really find a better forever type home that way.
Yeah, thanks, Katie, because I kind of need that. I was born here and I've lived on the east side of what I call the correct side of the river the last 50 something years. And, I've been to Tennessee now. Nance has been down 3 times in the last probably 8 or 9 weeks. So I need to hear from another long-term resident that you're not entirely uprooted. You can move on.
Yeah.
But I'll hear it, Katie, with regard to, renting and then finding something a little more permanent.
You can take your time and you don't have to settle, and you can get the whole lay of the land of exactly where you want to live, and who knows, you might find another place down there where you can have a small garden.
Oh, that's just about a definite. We are bringing along 2 of the grow lights, and there'll probably be some some raised bed type of thing.
Yeah.
And areas we're looking at, somewhat a little bit north of Nashville, like about 25, 30 minutes north of Nashville, they have farms.
Oh yeah.
You'll have a much longer growing season, which would certainly be nice.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know whether I'll ever get used to that or not, Sarah. But I look at the latitude and I see 36 degrees north and I go, oh, that's really, that's going to be, I've also, I've been looking at what the temperature's like for running outdoors in the winter.
Oh,
And, the things I liked least about where I live have been, having a 14-degree day, sometime in January and saying, okay, I've got to go up to the community center and use a treadmill because I just don't want to be outside.
Right.
Now I look at it and it might be 40, 41,
how do you deal with 100-degree days?
Oh, Sarah, please. I don't do that well at all. That's the other side of that. Okay. Is that I may have to go find the treadmill in July.
You might.
Well, I had to move, when I moved from Maine, I moved to what they called the balmy state because Connecticut was so much warmer than Maine.
Ken, just to give you a heads up, I have relatives down in Memphis, and when they get a snowflake, they shut the state down.
Oh boy.
They totally freak.
Well, we've still got our Connecticut tires on our vehicles, so we have had a little experience. Yeah, Dory, we're about we'll be about 3 hours or so north of Memphis.
Oh, there's all kinds of farms and stuff up there, especially horse farms.
Good to see you today, Ken.
Hi, Paul. Good to
So
see
you're
you too.
You're an observer tonight, right?
I am an observer.
Okay.
And
So-
having looked at the agenda, oh,
Don't you feel jealous that, we get to do all this work tonight? Okay,
I'm happy. I'm an observer.
okay. Well, we better
Yeah.
get started if we're going to finish this.
Do we
So,
have to get sworn in?
You do. And so it looks like our town clerk has joined us. So she was having a technical issue. So I don't know if that is resolved yet.
Yes, it is. Hello, everyone. Thank you for waiting.
Okay.
My apologies for being a bit late.
That's okay. For everyone who is not a member of the commission right now or staff, I am going to turn off your camera. So when you are ready to testify on something, you can turn your camera on. Thank you.
Okay, great. Let's see. Do we have a Corsi, Chandy, and Ward here?
Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, we will swear the three of you in first, and you are being sworn in for full terms on the Planning and Zoning Commission. So, if you would each
in that list
please.
as well, Sarah Ann?
I'm sorry.
Katie Fertoni, is she also in that list?
I have, oh yes, my apologies, I do. She's in a separate category to fill the vacancy for 2 years, but we'll do all four of them since they are all Planning and Zoning Commission members. Thank you, that's good. All right, so yes, Katie Fertoni also. Okay, so if you four would please raise your right hand. Thank you. Do you all solemnly swear or sincerely affirm, as the case may be, that you will faithfully discharge according to law the duties of Planning and Zoning Commission member to the best of your abilities? So help you God.
I do. I do.
I do.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you all. All right, and next we have, do we have DeVivo and Wutch here? Yes. Okay, great. And we are not joined by Manville tonight, is that right?
Yes, Lauren she was unable to make it this evening, so she'll have to arrange swearing in separately.
Okay, thank you. So for the two Planning and Zoning alternates, if you would please each raise your right hand. Thank you. Do you each solemnly swear or sincerely affirm, as the case may be, that you will faithfully discharge according to law the duties of the Office of Planning and Zoning alternate to the best of your abilities, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you both. All right, you are all official now. Have a wonderful meeting.
thank you.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
So now I can call the roll, right? Okay, so
Hold on,
member,
we're gonna start the recording again.
okay,
Recording in progress.
okay, so I called to order the Inland Wetlands Agency meeting of November 15th, 2021 at 6:35 PM. Members present are Aho, Acorsi, Chandy, Cooley, Cotton, Fertoni, Plant, Ward, and alternates DeVivo. And Craig, tell me how I pronounce your name, because I'm very sensitive about how last names are pronounced, as you might imagine.
It's pronounced Wooch, like Butch Wooch.
Very good, thank you. Which, okay.
Yeah.
And alternates DeVivo and Wooch are here, and one will be seated. Whose turn is it to be seated?
Mr. Chair, so obviously Mr. DeVivo has been seated since he's been our only alternate for a few months. He's been seated at every meeting. However, by custom, you typically have not seated brand new alternates just to allow them to get their feet wet with no pressure. So if you want to continue that custom, then you would seat DeVivo.
So DeVivo seated tonight, well, which gets a chance to watch us. Okay, and so next on the agenda is introduction of new alternate members. How do we handle that?
So just Craig, if you want to introduce yourself to the commission, and in this case, the Inland Wetlands Agency. And since you are only new member here this evening, everyone else is, they have met previously. Laurel will have this opportunity at the next meeting.
Okay, my name is Craig Wooch. I was born in Manchester. My father was in the dairy business. I went to college in Colorado at the University of Denver, where I studied economics. I did postgraduate work in city planning and community development at the University of Colorado, and did some postgrad work in labor market economics at Boston University. I made my living developing and opening casinos for Harrah's Entertainment. I retired. I'm back here in Mansfield with my husband of 25 years, Alonzo, and our 4 Labradors. And I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you.
Great. We're glad to have you. Okay, now we have a proclamation.
Vera, I think you're muted. Are you planning on putting this forward?
Glad to. I'm not sure I have the last.
Oh, I thought I said, let me share it on screen and we'll do it that way.
Ken, you'll forgive me if I pause to catch my breath. This isn't going to be easy.
Thank you, Vera. Thank you very much.
If you want, I'll get it. Okay. Now if I can just get my, okay. Mansfield Planning and Zoning Commission, proclamation in honor of Kenneth Ron. Whereas Kenneth Ron has dedicated 12 years of service to the town of Mansfield through his service Wetlands Agency and Planning and Zoning Commission, including service as vice chair from November 15, 2019 to his retirement on November 3rd, 2021. And whereas Mr. Ron was instrumental in the extension of public water and sewer service to the Four Corners through his chairmanship of the Four Corners Sewer and Water Advisory Committee. And whereas Mr. Ron has provided innumerable insights as a member of the Regulatory Review Committee and dedicated substantial time to discussing, debating, and championing updates to inland wetlands zoning and subdivision regulations. And whereas Mr. Ron and his wife Nancy have been tireless advocates for agriculture and the community and have been active members of Mansfield's agricultural community through their CSA, Gurleyville Native Produce. And whereas Mr. Ron has provided thoughtful and constructive feedback in his review of applications for the Planning and Zoning Commission and Inland Wetlands Agency, including insightful questions of applicants, active participation in commission discussions on the merits of applications, and unflinching respect for opinions expressed by fellow commissioners during deliberations. And whereas Mr. Ron has served as a model of the collegiality that is a hallmark of the commission, and whereas through his service and volunteer efforts, Mr. Ron has contributed greatly to what makes Mansfield a wonderful place to live and raise a family. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the Mansfield Planning and Zoning Commission, on behalf of the citizens of Mansfield, do hereby commend and thank Kenneth Ron for his long, and I've lost the bottom half. Want to finish it for me, Linda?
We do hereby commend and thank Kenneth Ron for his,
For his
For
long
his
and distinguished service to the
service.
commission and the town of Mansfield.
And just to be clear, some folks may be wondering, it just was scrolled down. This is also from the Mansfield Inland Wetlands Agency. So since you are acting as the agency presently, we just didn't want to have Ken stick around all night. But so we are, I think as Vera put it, everyone, we are very grateful for your service, Ken. So I think that Vera has I'll turn this over to Paul to chair this, but I believe that was a motion to adopt this proclamation from Vera.
Okay, moved by Ward,
Second.
second by DeVivo. All in favor? Raise your hand. It's unanimous. Congratulations, Ken. We'll miss you. Yes, you're taking a lot of institutional knowledge with you.
We're gonna miss you so much.
Do I get at least 45 seconds here?
Yes, please.
First, I'm going to thank all of you for having an opportunity to be able to work with you for the last 12 years or so. And in some cases, for some of you, for even longer, because I've worked in other capacities. And in particular, I think I want to thank our staff. And I know, I believe that I'm saying this on behalf of the rest of the Inland Wetlands and Planning and Zoning Commission, that Linda and Jennifer and Jolene have served this community well. And I think I want to express my gratitude to them and to all of you. Thank you for the opportunity. I do appreciate it.
Sorry
Thanks,
to see
Scott.
you go.
Ken, I hope you noticed that Mr. Delay joined us, I believe, just to show his appreciation for you, because I'm not sure if we had him scheduled for anything else this evening. So I know he talked to me earlier today about all of your service for the Four Corners Sewer and Water Committee and about how important you were. And that was echoed by John Carrington. So we do hope that we get to, given your expedited departure, we hope that we can get something scheduled. I know both Derek and John would also like to attend to thank you for your service and recognize you for everything that you and Nancy have done for the community.
Yeah,
And you'll be known forever for the sewers.
I've said for a while, and Nancy has said that probably the most important thing, last thing would be, a plaque right on the pumping station. That would be suitable in a lot of ways. I think most of you have enough imagination, okay, that I don't take that too much further.
Yeah, we've seen some of that come past here. Yeah.
Well, Ken, I will tell you, you have been a member of the Regulatory Review Committee since I started over 10 years ago. And that has been such a tremendous amount of work. And I want to thank you for, just all of the support. And, I think as Vera had in the proclamation, you have always been one who is open to discussion and ideas, and are really part of what makes things work, because you're not afraid to have a discussion and to change your mind. And I've really appreciated that, and getting to know you over the last 10 years. So thank you again, and we hope you enjoy Nashville and get to enjoy retirement a little bit.
Yeah, it may be the first time that I've actually retired. I'm not sure I know how to do it.
You'll catch on.
I'll give it a shot.
All right.
Okay, well, we do have some other things we must do. We have minutes from October 4th. Regular meeting minutes. Would someone like to put those forward?
Andy, I move that they be accepted as presented.
Okay, moved by Chandy,
Wait,
Christie
second.
seconds.
second by Ward. All in favor?
Aye.
Passed unanimously. Did Laurel show up? Did Laurel Manville show up?
I'm seeing her on the screen.
Yes.
Yes, I am here. I ended up not going to my prior commitment
Oh,
because
okay.
I wasn't feeling well this morning, and I'm feeling better, but it was probably a good choice not to go. But now I'm here.
Have you been sworn in?
I have not.
Okay.
Because so
you'd be happy. Can we get the clerk back for swearing in?
I can try.
I can swing by tomorrow. It was just Friday and today were challenging. And Thursday was the holiday. So I was going to try to swing by tomorrow, but I figured I would at least listen to what I could.
Yes. You're welcome to listen. Yes.
Yeah.
We'll put you on listening mode. That's a good way to break in.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Glad to have you watching.
Thank you.
Okay. Minutes have been approved. There's communication from the Conservation Commission. There's
Did
an
the minutes get approved?
Oh, okay. Yes, I believe so. Yeah, they were passed unanimously.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So, and just to clarify on that, so I'm assuming, Craig, you would be disqualified. Typically when members were not present, unless they weren't on the commission, they would disqualify themselves from that vote.
Right. Yes. Craig is disqualified.
Okay.
Right, because he wasn't here. Okay, so any questions about the Inland Wetlands Agent monthly report? Was there one?
Yes.
And then, so our old business, start out with an application for activities associated with a single family dwelling on Mulberry Street, Mulberry and Wormwood Hill.
Yes, so this actually was an application that was approved in 2005, and then it was renewed in 2009. The renewal expired in 2015, and per the regulations, you can only get one renewal, and so it's a new application. It's for a single family dwelling. The majority of the work occurs on a level area over 70 feet from the edge of wetlands. There are erosion and sedimentation controls shown on the plan. So I do have a approval motion, a possible approval motion in the packet, and I'm wondering if Linda, you have that available to share, or I can share my screen. Linda, are you there?
Linda might have gone to find the clerk.
No, I'm here. That I can
Okay.
do. I did the other request via text. So just so Jen, is it in your staff report?
It's in my staff report. I can share this, Linda, if you just, yeah, let me just do that.
I've got it.
Okay, you do? Okay.
Yep.
It's the plans I'll need your help with so that I can see the screen as well.
So
You have to scroll down though, Linda. Yeah, there, because we can't. Yeah, there we go.
so I would say I was on the field trip there, and I must say that's one of the drier places I've seen in Mansfield. it seems to be a pretty straightforward application.
I can put it forward.
Okay,
Shandy,
okay,
I move to grant inland wetlands license pursuant to the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Regulations of the Town of Mansfield to P. Abbott for regulated activities associated with the construction of a single-family dwelling on Mulberry Road at the intersection with Wormwood Hill Road, Assessors Parcel ID 24.74.7B, as shown on plans revised through 9/16/21 and is described in application submissions. This action is based on a finding that there will be no significant impact of the wetlands and watercourses and is conditioned on the following provisions being met. Prior to commencing construction, the applicant or the representative must schedule an inspection with the inland wetlands agent to confirm that the limits of disturbance have been clearly demarcated and silt fence installed. 2, appropriate erosion and sedimentation controls as shown on the plan shall be in place prior to construction, maintained during construction, and removed when disturbed areas are completely stabilized. This approval is valid through November 15, 2026. The applicant shall notify the wetlands agent before any work begins, and all work shall be completed within 1 year. Any extension of the activity period shall come before this agency for further review and comment.
moved by Chandy,
Second by Cooley.
second by Cooley. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Okay, unanimous.
And Mr. Chair,
Yes.
the town clerk has rejoined us to swear in Ms. Manville.
Oh, okay. All right. We're getting up to almost full strength here. Okay, town clerk, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Manville, if you would please raise your right hand. Hi there.
Hi.
Hi.
Right
Okay.
hand.
Yeah, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or sincerely affirm, as the case may be, that you will faithfully discharge according to law the duties of the office of Planning and Zoning Commission alternate to the best of your abilities, so help you God?
Yes.
All right, you're all set. Congratulations.
All right. Thank
Thank
you.
you. All
Thank
right.
you, Sarah Ann.
So you're
You're welcome.
officially with us.
All right.
One thing you could do is tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. I am fairly new to Mansfield, so I moved here in the fall of 2019. My husband actually grew up in this area and was away for about 20 years. And then we moved back with our almost 5-year-old now. It's been kind of a weird 2 years with COVID and everything. So, but I just felt like this was a good opportunity to get involved with the town, bring some perspective from other places I lived. And also, like, I'm passionate about Mansfield's connection with the university, as well as being a good place to raise a family, you know, having a young child. And the school system was one reason we chose this location, but also I think livability is an important aspect when it comes to transportation, sustainability. I could, you know, go on about that, but my professional background is a product designer, and I've worked in a variety of different industries, solving, you know, being kind of a professional problem solver, I guess you could say. So I feel like that creative thinking can lend itself to this position, and I'm just excited to learn more. So here I am.
Thank you and welcome. And we have
Yep.
lots of problems to solve. So yes, it'll sound familiar here. Okay, we're almost up to full strength here. I'm glad that we've got new members. And now on to our next. And you are an alternate. You're not seated tonight, so
yeah,
you can.
Yeah.
But as an alternate, you may have read the fine print about being an alternate. You can participate in discussions. The only time the alternates need to be quiet is after a motion is made.
Mhm.
So before motions are made, you've got the same standing as everyone else.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, let's move on to Dog Lane, an application of Spring Hill Builders and Remodelers to modify an inland wetlands license for construction of a single-family dwelling on the east side of Dog Lane. And I believe we have a presentation about this. Ed, are you going to be presenting?
Yeah, Ed will be presenting. I
Okay.
did want to do a little bit of an introduction.
Okay, yeah.
The Inland Wetlands Agency does not very often get a modification. So, and there have been a number of communications from the public that we have included in your packet. However, a modification, you have a very narrow charge this evening, and that is to determine whether or not what is presented before you tonight is a significant alteration to what was approved in 2016. So Linda, if you want to pull up the plan, I'm just going to sort of.
Which one? There are several attachments.
Yeah, the comparison plan, apologies. And then I think Ed wanted to talk about that. I did get an email from Luann Cooley, who had brought to my attention that in my memo, I stated that there was an additional approximately 2990 square feet of impervious surface in the upland review area. But if you look at the approved plan versus the new plan, they're stating that it's going to be a gravel driveway. I did not include that in my calculation just because you don't have to come before the agency to pave a driveway, and it is certainly a paved driveway is more impervious than a gravel driveway, but it is still relatively impervious. So that's why I put that in my memo. But I'm gonna let Ed Pelletier review with you the difference in these two plans. So Ed, if you're ready.
I'm ready.
Let me know if you need anything, any other plans.
We'll have to use the other plan after, but let's start with this one.
Great.
My name's Ed Pelletier from Datum Engineering and Surveying. And what we're asking tonight is for a modification of a plan that was approved and still effective as of June 6, 2016. If you look at this plan, what you see in red is proposed changes to the plan. The black color is what was previously approved and still in effect. Differences are, well, there's two differences that were probably more pertinent than any of the others, and that would be the area of the driveway. If you look on the table on the right-hand side, you see the new plan has under the driveway 33,430, I think that's 30 there, 30 square feet. And the old driveway was, thank you, was 2,250 square feet. So if you look back at the plan, if you go back to there we go, yep, down a little lower, you'll see this dark line, dash line, that is actually the 150-foot setback from the wetlands. And you can see that majority of the driveway on the revised plan is substantially bigger outside of the wetland regulated area. It's only because the garage is bigger, so they have a bigger gravel area. The area that's within the 150-foot regular is very similar, very little difference in amount of square feet. So the major difference, as you can see, is going to be the house, but it's a long ranch. So it extends substantially further east than the original plan had depicted. And that is 1,810 square feet larger roof area wise than the original application. The septic system, as you can see, is basically the same area. Actually, the reserve area is actually smaller than the area that was originally on the plan, and the total area of the septic area is actually smaller. If you needed to look at anything else, oh, well, we can go over limits of disturbance is actually smaller too, if you look at the dark line versus the red line with the LD on it. So we're actually disturbing less area than it was on the original plan. Can you put up the other one, Linda?
Which?
The remediation plan.
Yeah, the remediation.
Towards the end of the
Yes.
packet. Here we go.
Okay, thank you. So trying to offset the difference in impervious area due to the house, what we're proposing to do, which this is a plan I submitted this morning actually, because Frank and I were discussing how to try to mitigate the additional square footage of impervious area due to the house. And what we're proposing is to actually tie the roof leaders and the foundation drain into these two areas that are labeled RG, which are going to be rain gardens. And that will definitely make a big difference in the runoff from the house. The rest of the site is still the same. Again, the septic system is a little bit smaller. And then we're just trying to mitigate any potential for contaminants actually reaching the wetlands. Now, we're not asking for any modifications of the original permit regarding the conditions that were set or the recommendations that were done for the turtles and for the crayfish. Those are still going to be in place, so we're not asking to change that. On the turtle end of it, the major concern with the turtles is during construction period. Once construction is done, there's no more danger for the turtles. They just go where they want to make their nests or roam where they want. The construction is a problem because we're not trying to crush any of their turtles or their eggs if they're in their mating season. I didn't see any turtles right out there, but doesn't mean they're not there. My eyesight is as good as it used to be. Although George Logan did go out there and he said he couldn't find any crayfish. He didn't find any signs of turtles. Again, that doesn't mean they're not there. There was a letter that was written by Folta, Jay Folta. I guess Jennifer wanted me to address some of the items on this, Jennifer. Yes. I don't hear you.
That would be great.
Okay.
So many of those items refer to lot 2, which was withdrawn. So I would think just address the items that relate to this lot 1.
Yes, I was going to tell you that.
Yeah.
Basically, items 1 through 9 have to deal with lot 1, not this lot. I mean, lot 2, not this lot. Now, he had I talked about the turtles, but he had also talked about the increase in flow to the stream that's behind there. There's no question that as development gets done upstream, you do have an increase in flow. This building, this proposed house actually is 9 feet higher than the edge of the wetlands. So even if there was an increase in flow, it's not going to go beyond the wetlands anyway. The brook is quite a ways away from the edge. In some places it's a little bit closer, but in this area it's a little further away. There's quite a substantial difference in height between the house basement floor, not even the finished floor. That's the basement floor to the edge of the wetlands is approximately 9 feet. So there's no issues with water around this house. We're getting up this high. Again, there's a substantial wetlands that this feeds. And we're not disturbing any wetlands whatsoever or trying to change any water courses. It's just a pretty straightforward single-family house on a top of a knoll. I'm more than happy to ascertain any questions.
We have let's see. we did receive some other correspondence from the public regarding this, and just before at 4:19 actually, and it went into the general planning and zoning commission mailbox. So I'm just seeing that within the past 20 minutes. And it's one person said that the NDDB request for review did expire as of 2017. So one condition that you could put on there is that you go out for another determination and that the permit meet the requirements from the NDDB. So that would be one thing. Then that was received from Deborah Dancy. And then we do have another piece of correspondence from that was uploaded to your packet, if you can bear with me. From Sandra Lizzie, and I think she was so she was concerned about the size of the house and where the water would go when it rains, she said the 2016 plan included a timely letter from CT Deep, and then she also talked about that the proximity of the septic systems. I'm actually, okay, the driveway and the septic field are now much closer to the lot line, which means that there will be no original undisturbed land between the two homes. Can you talk a little bit about that, Ed? And if lot 2 were to be developed, because that's not a request that's being, that there's no modification right now before you for lot 2, but could you talk a little bit about the proximity of the septic systems between lot 1 and lot 2?
Yeah, I can. It's the same as it was on the original approval. It hasn't changed. The area is just a little smaller.
But the septic system for lot 1 has changed. That location has changed. Can you talk?
It was changed based on the house that was under that time, but through the application. You can remember on lot 2, that septic system was bigger because it was originally a 5-bedroom house. That may not be the case with another application. We had a specific buyer at the time. That buyer backed out. So.
But ultimately,
if it's a smaller septic system, yeah, go ahead.
Ultimately, the health code will determine that and make sure that there will be enough of a setback between the two septic systems.
Yes, there's a minimum of 15 feet you have to be from the side yard with the septic system. It could be further, it just can't be any closer.
Sarah, you had a question.
Well, I would just wanted to say, I think there's enough interest in this in the area that we should afford them a public hearing, and I think that's only fair. There are major changes. The building structure has increased, I don't know how many fold, but quite large. And the impervious driveway or semi-impervious driveway is a lot longer. So I think it's fair to say that it really needs a new application, which would then generate a public hearing.
Yeah, I think, some of our outward facing publications indicate that if you get 25 signatures, you need a public hearing. Now, if you go back into our regulations, you don't necessarily need a public hearing in this case. But I think it's a little confusing because when you look at the condensed version of it, you really do get a hearing. So we might want to err on the side of allowing, I think I'd have to agree with Vera, we might want to err on the side of a hearing since they did go through the trouble of getting 25 signatures. But I'd like to hear what other commission members think about that.
This is Binu.
Yeah.
I have to agree. There's so many people have petitioned for a public hearing, so I think we should give them audience.
Dorianne?
I totally agree. They got the petition. There's such, in my opinion, there's a big change in this, and I really think it should be reviewed.
Okay. Luann, did you want to say something? No, okay. There is a motion for that. We can put up the motion and then discuss it more if we need to.
I'd be glad to put that motion forward.
Okay.
Just bear with me and I will throw that up on the screen for you.
I have it. I can, well,
Okay.
you can put it up anyway. Move to rule that the modifications to inland wetlands license W 1561 requested by Spring Hill Builders and Remodelers LLC for construction of a single-family dwelling in the upland review area on the east side of Dog Lane, approximately 500 feet from the intersection with Bundy Lane, Assessor's Parcel ID 16.41.23-1, constitutes a significant or substantial alteration of the application as approved on June 6, 2016. And 2, receive the application of Spring Hill Builders and Remodelers LLC for construction of a single-family dwelling and associated amenities in the upland review area on the east side of Dock Lane, approximately 500 feet from the intersection with Bundy Lane, Assessor's Parcel ID 16.41.23-1 application, and refer said application to staff and the Conservation Commission for review and comment. Pursuant to Section 9.1 of the regulations, as a petition signed by at least 25 Mansfield residents 18 years of age or older has been filed with the agency, request that staff schedule a public hearing for statutory requirements.
Moved by Ward,
Second.
second by Chandy. Any discussion? You want to show me I'll take that away so I can see the pictures, all the pictures. Okay, thank you. Okay, all in favor of the motion? I believe that's unanimous. Okay, moving on to. Okay, so we have a timber harvest request by D. Early for a jurisdictional ruling to conduct an 80-acre timber harvest with 3 temporary stream crossings.
This is one of your standard jurisdictional rulings. This this is kind of a retroactive jurisdictional ruling. We did receive the way that normally works is a forester will submit a request for timber harvest that was received in our office sometime this past spring, and it was lost kind of in the shuffle when we were switching over with our administrative assistant. And so this timber harvest has already begun, just so you know. And so they still are requesting a jurisdictional ruling to determine whether or not you have jurisdiction over it.
This is almost, go ahead, Vera.
Is this unusual? I mean, a timber harvest, one would think would know to apply for an application.
They did apply. We just never, it was in a pile. And when we had the transfer, it's the planning and development department's fault. There was a lot of transition that happened. And so it kind of got lost in that shuffle.
All right.
So,
They submitted it, Vera. It did not make its way to Jennifer's desk.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
I think we pretty routinely accept these, but we do like them to do it beforehand.
Yeah.
And they made the attempt to do it beforehand.
They did do it beforehand. It was our bad.
You have a motion that you can put up for that.
Linda, are you putting it up or do you want me to?
I'll do it.
Thank you.
Okay, would someone like to put that forward?
I'll move.
Okay,
Ward moves to approve a finding that the proposed timber harvest and associated stream crossings on land located on the south side of Forest Road, assessor parcel ID 7.13.11, filed number J-28, owned by Guilford Park LLC, as shown in application materials submitted on November 10th, 2021, is permitted as of right pursuant to section 4.1 of the Mansfield Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Regulations.
moved by Ward,
Corsi seconds.
Corsi, second by Corsi. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, unanimous. Okay, now we have the application of H&C Bruckner for repair of an existing culvert driveway on North Eagleville Road. This is, we're just receiving this?
Yeah, and my receipt motion did not make it into the packet.
Okay,
Oh, I apologize for that. Why don't you go down to the next one and I can quickly pull that up.
okay. So the next one is the application of the town of Mansfield to modify conditions of an inland wetlands license for their sidewalk to Southeastern School. That was the one where they haven't been able to kill those weeds, right?
Correct. So that, and
Town of
Derek
Mansfield
July,
versus weeds.
Derek July is here and he can talk about that application. Let's see, Derek, are you still with us?
I am still with you, Jennifer.
I promised Derek would be like 6:45 and it's taking us a little bit longer.
That's okay. All the very important things.
Go ahead, Derek.
Great. Well, thank you all for accepting our amended application. So what we were, with this project was for completion of the Safe Routes to School project, which leads from Route 195 up Route 89 to the Southeast Elementary School. There was a small portion of wetlands that were filled in order to make this walkway along the alignment. And one of the mitigation measures that this agency proposed was to do a basically to try to eliminate some of the invasive species through non-herbicidal methods. So we were going to try to use some of the best practices that were out there that wouldn't include any kind of herbicides. So that include basically getting out there, mowing things down in accordance with an ecologist, and then putting a tarp, for lack of a better term, over the said weeds to try to cook them in the summer sun. Didn't have great success. We left them out there until about October, and come springtime, they definitely came back very quickly, unfortunately. So in lieu of trying to go through that process, we were hoping to see if the agency would be amenable to removing that condition from the approval, as it really was not successful at all. So I'm not sure if there's any other questions that anybody has.
Any questions for Derek? Yeah, go ahead, Katie.
How are you going to get rid of them now? Are you going to have to use pesticides or dig them up or something like that?
Yeah, we did ask the question if we could use some herbicides, and we got a very resounding no, which was in the letter was included in your packet from the Josh Rose Trust Organization. So we really don't have a good way of removing these without herbicides. We've done some literature review, have not seen tremendous amount, but as always, we'd always be open if somebody has some better ideas, as always. So that's kind of our plan right now, unfortunately, is that we really can't use any herbicides.
So I think the request is to just let him off the hook. I'd be inclined to let him off the hook. Any other comments? Okay. Do we have a motion for that? Okay. Who would like to put that forward?
I can put that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Move to rule that the request by the town of Mansfield to remove condition 4 outlined in the Inland Wetlands License File W1607 related to the removal of the non-native invasive species fragmites in the wet meadow on the corner of Route 89 and 195 or owned by Joshua's Trust does not constitute a significant or substantial alteration of the application as approved.
Okay, moved by Chandy.
Patton seconds.
Okay. Moved second by Cotton. Any discussion? You want to take that off? Okay, thank you. All in favor? Okay, Mansfield, you're off the hook. Okay, let's go back to the driveway. We just have to receive that one, right?
Yep, and I did put a receipt motion in the chat box, so if someone wants to put that forward.
Okay,
I have that. I move to receive the award moves to receive the application of H&C Bruckner for repair of existing culverted driveway crossing at Eagleville Brook on property located at 439 North Eagleville Road. Assesses parcel ID 20.30.1-1. Refer said application to the Conservation Commission for review and comments and request that staff schedule a public hearing per statutory requirements.
moved by Ward,
Plant seconds.
second by Plant. All in favor? Okay, unanimous.
There will need to be a field trip related. They are also going to need a special permit for this because it is in a floodway and a flood hazard area. So I just want to take a tentative poll to see how many people are available this Wednesday at 3. If I can also get the Conservation Commission out there at that time, then we could have the field trip then, and the Conservation Commission can consider this at their meeting on Wednesday. If not, it's not a big deal because they have to do a special permit. So this is going to get pushed out a little bit anyways. So
I'm available Wednesday on 3 at 3.
Anyone else? Carlita?
Vera, no?
I don't think I'll be on time. So, but
Okay.
Jennifer, haven't we seen this before? I remember going there. I thought.
Not this one.
That was the one on Separatist.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
there's a lot of these.
Did they ever build the one on Separatist?
Yes, they did. It's I'm going out to look at it tomorrow or the next day. They've finished it.
Oh, no, it wasn't that one. It was off North Eagleville. I thought I remember the two culverts.
That was a town project on Hillendale in North Eagleville.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a little further down.
All the culverts blend together.
They do. So we will be in touch with you regarding the field trip Wednesday at 3.
Okay.
And thank you.
So unless there's anything else, we are adjourned at 7:22. Thank you, everyone. Now we can move on to planning and zoning. So the November 15th meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission is called to order at 7:23. Members present are Aho, Corsi, Chandy, Cooley, Cotton, Frattoni, Plant, Ward, and alternates DeVivo, Manville, and Watch. And DeVivo is seated for retiring member Ron. We did the we already did the introduction of new members, or do we have to do that again, Linda?
No, you can.
No, okay, we've been introduced. Okay, so now we have election of officers. And start off if there's any nominations for the chairperson.
I would like to nominate Mr. Paul Aho for chair
Okay.
in Zoning Commission.
I will
Tony
second.
will second.
Okay, thank you. Chandy moved, Ward seconded. Any discussion? Am I doing this right, Linda? All in favor? Can I vote for myself? Okay, I believe that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, now, the second position is vice chairman. And I'd like to nominate Carlita Cotton for that position, if she would be interested in taking it.
I would humbly accept.
Okay,
I'd like to
Tony will
second
second.
okay, for Tony seconds. Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. And finally, for secretary, I'd like to nominate Vera Ward for secretary. Would you like to do this for a couple more years, Vera?
I'll hang in.
You're the best secretary we've had. We got to keep you.
I'm not sure that's true. Thanks.
You're great with details. That's what we need.
I'd like to second that.
Second by Chandy. Any discussion? All in favor? Very unanimous. Okay.
Thank you all and congratulations. And I am going to give a special thanks to Vera because for the few months she was off the commission, as everyone knows, we could not find someone to act as secretary for a night, much less take it on as a permanent position. So thank you.
We couldn't function without you.
Oh, you can.
Not as well. Okay, now this is the time every 2 years when we have an opportunity to change bylaws.
So you are actually required at this meeting to review your bylaws. So I would argue you probably could change them anytime you wanted, but you are actually required as part of this organizational meeting to review your bylaws. So you do have a memo from me regarding some proposed changes. So the first one, I think we may have talked about briefly over the summer, but for those of you who have been watching the town council meetings, you may have noticed that they have instituted what is known as a consent agenda. And the purpose of that is for items that are non-controversial, that are fairly straightforward, the recommendations from staff can be approved in one motion. So examples of things that might go on be placed on a consent agenda would be approval of minutes, receipt of new applications. In the case of the IWA, we would look at probably license renewals and jurisdictional rulings. But in talking with Jennifer, she recommended that modifications be kept separate. And then for Planning and Zoning Commission, modifications to existing and permits and plans. And again, some of this is judgment call, and we'll work with the chair on this in terms of whether something that requires your approval is fairly minor versus a major modification, which needs more review and discussion. 824 referrals, as well as interpretations of regulations. And again, if that's something that's fairly straightforward and it's not something where you need a discussion, the way consent agendas work is that even if something is listed under the consent agenda, if any member of the commission says, I have questions, I want to talk about this, it comes off of the consent agenda and then gets placed under old business or new business, depending on which is most appropriate. So it's a way of trying to take some of those items. So for example, later this evening, you're going to have a receipt of an application. So as you know, in some cases, we have multiple receipts in an evening and you're kind of doing them one by one. This would allow you in one motion to say, yes, we're receiving these applications and directing staff to schedule public hearings. So if the commission is interested in this, staff will work on drafting amendments to the bylaws for your consideration at the next meeting.
That seems like a good way to save time.
Okay.
In the interest of perhaps wasting your time, I certainly agree with receipt of new applications. That's pro forma.
Yep.
I'm not sure what you mean in IWA for license renewals, such as what?
So usually a license renewal is not, they're making no changes, it's just expired. And so they need
Like
to
those
get the
gravel
license
pits.
renewed. So there's no changes to what they're proposing and what you approved. It's simply a renewal to give you it's a time extension essentially.
I see. Just for applications that have come before us.
Correct.
And
Would the
would
gravel pit be an example of that?
Would
a gravel pit?
No, gravel pit is a special permit.
That's a special. Okay, right.
That this would be, say the license, it is up, nothing's gonna change, but then they want to just renew it for another 5 years. And per the regulations, unless there's been a significant change, you have to renew it.
So
Of
does
course,
this mean that the modifications would, okay.
No, I specifically wanted to have that not included just because of what I think those can be more complicated and you do need to review them.
Plus, if anyone objects, it can be taken off, right?
Correct. Correct.
Now
So
that-
this
now-
is, and I will say, I have had a lot of experience working with this in Florida, where we, our caseload for the planning equivalent of the planning commission was 25 applications a month. And so obviously the ability to hold 25 public hearings does not exist. And in Florida, different enabling language. We worked with it where if the applicant was in agreement with staff's recommendations, if there was not any public comment that we received, again, any commissioner could take that off of consent agenda and say, I have questions, I want to talk about this and have it answered. Otherwise, it was addressed. And again, it's a way of just trying to be efficient with your time. But even where on Planning and Zoning Commission, we have modifications to existing permits and plans. Again, I think that's a judgment call that staff would work with the chair to say, here's what's being proposed. What do you think? But there are some things that by your regulations, we have to bring to you as a modification or something that you need to approve, but it's not necessarily something that you need a presentation on or a full discussion. So an example of that might be a sign associated with a special permit project where, the sign was not submitted when they went through the application process. It's a deferred submission, or if someone is doing a minor expansion to a building, but it requires your approval pursuant to the regulations, but it's not really a substantial change that you have an issue with. So again, we can, if there are certain things you say, I really, interpretations of regulations, I debated, that's something you could conceivably say no. If it's an interpretation, we want to have that discussion, and that should not be something that would ever be placed on consent.
Okay, yeah, why don't you get that ready for us to take a look at?
So the next item that would be a change, and so before we go kind of move forward with this, we wanted to broach the concept of changing the day that you guys meet. And so for those of you who have been on the commission for a very long time, or those of you that were new and based your schedule on the fact that this is a Monday evening meeting, the question we are asking is whether or not you would be open to changing to a Thursday evening meeting. And we wanted to kind of gauge openness to that idea. And then depending on the commission's interest, we will then try and work through any room conflict resolutions with other boards and committees.
I don't have any objection to Thursday.
Neither
May I
have I.
Sorry. Oh.
Sarah?
May I ask the reason for changing from Monday?
So it's a couple of things. One, as you know, we occasionally have very late meetings. And when that happens on a Monday night, I'll speak only for myself in this, it is very draining to then go through 4 days of work and try and be focused after that evening. And then from a staff perspective, so there's that in terms of the toll it takes on us when we have those late meetings. The second piece also deals with that, which is Thursday is a long day for us. So we're already here until 6:30. So keeping going at that point is kind of like, okay, we're just chugging along. And then Fridays we're here until noon. So if we have one of those late meetings that goes until 11 o'clock at night, we're coming in for 4 hours the next day, as opposed, and then getting a weekend break to recover. So that was really a lot of the logic behind it for us.
Katie?
Would it stay on the first and third Thursdays?
That is our proposal. The Board of Education has the second and fourth Thursdays wrapped up for the most part. I have talked to, again, once we go back to it's not an issue when we're virtual, but once we go back to in-person meetings, there are some conflicts that in order for this to move forward, we would need to resolve. I've talked to the staff person for that committee, and her committee is asking some questions about movement. But really, what I told her was, I'm just going to start this discussion with you tonight, and then, you know, if this is something that you're open to, we will try and resolve any of those room conflicts and find something that works moving forward. We cannot make this change without a change to the bylaws, because your bylaws do specify both for IWA and PZC that you meet on the first Monday for inland wetlands, and then first and third Mondays for planning and zoning.
Why don't you poll us? Well, you're trying to get an informal poll.
I'm
right
trying
now.
to get right.
Okay, so how many people would
Can I ask
be
a
willing to
question?
consider Thursday?
We got to ask a question first.
Yeah.
When would this
Which-
happen?
Yeah.
It would not happen until January.
Okay.
And are we still going to have inland wetlands on Mondays?
No,
And then,
everything
no.
was switched. So the
Everything will go to
same-
Thursday.
Still, yeah, we would just move both meetings to Thursdays.
And it would be the same time?
We do have a suggestion to move it a little earlier if we could. That depends on members' availability. And I did just see something in the chat that Laurel is not available on Thursdays in May.
Until May.
Yeah, until May.
Until May. Oh, that's a big difference. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I
not
read
be
it quickly. It
available.
popped up, popped down.
I would need time to change my
Yeah.
schedule.
Okay. All right.
I know that staff has been requesting us, at least from the, 5 years ago, they put this request.
We thought we try it every 5 years, man. What can I say? It sounds like we have some conflicts, so we will just, it sounds like we're just going to leave it at a Monday. I will ask.
Wednesday is not a possibility?
Potentially. Well, I think, we can take a look at that. I think for us, it then puts us at 2 late nights back to back, because we have to be here until 6:30. And I see a shaking of head from Carlita that Wednesday doesn't work. So,
Okay.
all right. So I think we're keeping it on Monday. So then the question comes, would people be available to meet earlier, or is 6:30 the earliest start time that is available?
I would be fine with 6, not a problem, or earlier.
I could do earlier for sure.
How many people could go as early as 5:30? Is that everyone?
That looks like John and Dory
John?
and our.
Okay.
So that would be a tough.
That'd be tough. So if we
It
move it
might
up
be
to
tougher
6,
when the summer comes, more so than in the winter. So
Yeah.
if we
I
mo-
can
if we
do,
move it
I
up
can
to-
do 6.
how about 6 o'clock? 6
Okay.
o'clock works.
So 6 o'clock Mondays. Got it.
Okay. We'll get you another
we should-
half hour of sleep, Linda.
Can I suggest something, since Laurel said she cannot do till May, until May, should we bring this discussion again after that?
I think there were other folks, including Carlita, for whom that it was just
Oh,
not an
okay.
option. So, and since Carlita just volunteered to be our new vice chair. So, well, you know what, we thought it had been several years, and quite frankly, the last time we raised this, the chair at the time basically told me they would resign if we pushed this issue. So we dropped it at that time. We didn't think it was worth losing a member. And again, we want to work with your schedules as well. We just thought it was worth, raising the possibility to see if it worked for folks. But if it doesn't, it doesn't. So.
Okay, just keep asking us.
Yeah, I have a question about the ending time. I know we kind of put cannot go beyond some time for ourselves. Is that also in the bylaws?
It is not. So
Alright.
I think what we've typically done, with long hearings, and I will say there was one other request that you had made this summer, which we discussed with the town attorney, which was establishing speaker limits. And he was very uncomfortable with that concept. So I know that came up with a request that we consider establishing maximum times for speaking. We talked with him about that last week, and he was not comfortable with that concept. I think, what you're suggesting is maybe the idea of, okay, we're going to go until 10 o'clock, and and I know in the past, it's been a long time. I think there was once when we had 2 hearings scheduled for the same evening, where the chair at the time basically said, okay, we have 1 or 2 other hearings tonight. We are stopping testimony on this. It's being continued to this meeting. Please come back. So I think we tend to do that more just on a, based on what your capacity is, because the reality is it's hard. I also know it's hard for you once you get past a few
I think
hours.
about 10:30 is about the limit, I think.
So
I know, but
and I say that knowing that we actually had a hearing that was scheduled to start at 7, which we thought we would be in good shape for, and it's 7:40. So, I don't think it will be as long as some of the other hearings that we've had, but we do have a presentation from the applicant this evening. And that's one of the things we're also trying to do is with the larger projects, break it up so that it's not all in one meeting for you, if we can.
Dorianne.
And can we put a time frame on this? I mean, we had many meetings that ended.
Well, we can ask the town attorney if we can go. I think he was uncomfortable with establishing limits for speakers, whether we can establish a kind of, we're not going to go past X time because it's not beneficial to anyone, including the applicant, for us for you to try and be, attentive and deliberating for that long of a period of time. We can ask that question.
Vera.
Well, I thought the town council has a time limit. Why don't we?
The town council has a time limit, and that's under their general public comment. So that's something you do not do. So when you are taking public comment on items, you are in a public hearing process. So that's someone's opportunity to essentially testify with regard to the compliance of an application with approval criteria. And that's something that, so arbitrarily establishing a time limit for that makes our attorney nervous, because that's something that procedurally, should we get into an appeal in court and someone saying, I didn't have, they made a decision, but I wasn't given ample enough opportunity to present my case, is something that may be challenging for
most people don't abuse that. It's just, most people don't abuse the time. We've only had a couple cases this year.
So I think it's when it happens, it's kind of most fresh in your minds. You're like, oh my goodness, can we please do this?
Yeah.
The council's rule, again, I believe that rule, they use it when it's their general public comment, which is kind of, you can talk to them about anything. I'm not sure if they do it as much on public hearings, but again, for the most part, their actions are more legislative in nature. So if they have a public hearing, it's typically on an ordinance change. Sometimes it's a public hearing on whether to file a grant application. But when it's required by the funding agency, whereas you're actually reviewing applications for compliance with regulations and really acting in a quasi judicial manner at that point.
Let's look into the possibility of having an upper time limit for the,
okay.
And people can keep talking, but some other day.
And one more thing, do the bylaws actually have to mention a day of the week?
That's a good question. I think they just always have. So when we've done amendments, we've literally just amended the basis that we've had, that the commission has had for decades. So you do have to establish a regular meeting schedule annually. So you will be doing that at the next meeting. We held off so you could have this discussion on the possible time and day change. But when you adopt a meeting schedule annually, so one of the things we may be able to do is simply say in the bylaws, the commission will adopt a regular meeting schedule.
Yeah.
By December 31st of each year.
And then we don't have to change the bylaws if we want to change the date. Yeah, let's try to keep that open.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, committee assignments.
Yes, so you do have an attachment and this is something you, again, we're going to have part 2 of your organizational items next month with your calendar and your bylaws. So I would not say that you need to address this now, but we did include a memo for you in terms of who our current appointees are to various committees that you serve on. So Luann and Carlita are our 2 members that represent the commission on the Capital Region Council of Governments Regional Planning Commission. So Luann's the primary and Carlita is the alternate currently. On the Sustainability Committee, Katie is your representative. And for Town University Relations, Paul, you are the representative. And then for the Transportation Advisory Committee, we have 2 members on that committee. Paul, you are one, and the other position is currently vacant. It was held by Ross Hall. So those are the committee appointments we need. Those of you who served on the ad hoc committee on affordable and workforce housing, I will tell you that I will be recommending to the town manager that I think the town council can officially dissolve that committee. So thank you all for that, for your service on that. The town council unanimously adopted the proposed ordinance establishing an affordable housing trust fund last week. So with their action on that and the adoption of the affordable housing plan this summer, the charge for that committee is completed, and therefore that's why we'll be recommending that that committee be dissolved at this point. So
good. We're making progress.
So if anyone is interested, please let staff know, and we'll bring that up at the next meeting for any of these positions. And then for our new members, we also have a regulatory review committee. And this is there has typically been a core group of 4 to 5 members. Technically, any member of the commission can join those meetings. Our current schedule is Thursdays at 3:30, I believe. We'll have to revisit that for next year. And our current members, we've had some departures. So our current members are Aho, Cooley, and Ward. So Laurel and Craig, if you're interested in joining, or if any other of our members are interested in joining, please let us know. And this group works on proposed changes to zoning regulations, subdivision regulations, and inland wetlands regulations.
Okay. We finally gotten to the approval of minutes. Took a while.
It only took us 23 minutes.
23, okay. Okay, so we have some minutes from October 18th. Nearly a month ago.
I move that we approve. I think there's just a line missing under approval of minutes. I think it's probably oh no, it's never mind. Never mind.
Moved by Ward.
I'll move it anyway.
Plant seconds it.
Plant, second by Plant. All in favor?
I watched the video.
Okay, very good. So the minutes are adopted. There is.
I also watched the video.
Okay. We had there was a zoning agent report.
So do we?
Jillian, you want to add anything to that?
Nope, nothing to add unless anybody's got any questions for me.
I have a question. When we have, for example, an overcrowding situation in a rental, is that something that we deal with, or is that something that housing inspection deals with?
So it's usually a joint effort. We can enforce the definition of family if we're able to figure that out. But they can enforce with the housing ordinance. So it's kind of done together.
Okay, all right. Is there, in your opinion, is there any need for more assistance in that area? More full-time people? I shouldn't, maybe I shouldn't ask you.
Yeah, I'd have to defer to the Director of Building Housing and Linda for that, but in my opinion, the housing inspectors are out there driving around, doing their inspections on every morning. And they're really on top of all of the rental houses that are reported as problems.
Okay. All right. And we have a public hearing.
You do.
And Linda, would you like to read the boilerplate for me?
I'd be happy to, Paul.
Thank you.
As a reminder to all participants, including members and staff, please state your name before speaking. Mine is Linda Painter. I'm Director of Planning and Development. For those viewing at home on live stream, please understand that there's a 1 to 2 minute time lag due to transmission delays. If you'll be providing verbal testimony during the public hearing, you can call into the meeting at any time. We will take a few minutes after the applicant's presentation to give people time to call in. The guidelines for the public hearing. Tonight, the purpose of tonight's hearing is to receive relevant information about the proposed application from the public. Order and decorum shall be maintained at all times during the hearing. The commission reserves the right to adjourn the hearing to another date and time if the discussion becomes unruly and unmanageable. Given the virtual format, we ask that everyone bear with us if we encounter any glitches. If we are unable to overcome technical issues and/or the commission is having difficulty understanding information presented in this format, the hearing will be continued to another meeting. The order of presentations this evening will be as follows. First, the applicant, then public comment, and public comment will be taken the order of support, opposition, and undetermined or request for additional information. When addressing the commission, please state your name and address and any party, group, or organization you represent for the record before beginning your comments. Limit your comments to the subject of the public hearing. Avoid repetition where possible. Summarize reports and letters that are submitted to the commission rather than reading them aloud, as all written information is copied and distributed to members. Direct all questions and comments to the chair. Do not attempt to engage in dialogue with members of the commission, staff, or any other parties to the hearing. Speak clearly to ensure your comments are audible to members of the public watching from home and are recorded. Commission members may ask questions of anyone providing testimony, but will not discuss the relative merits of the application until the hearing is closed. Failure to abide by these policies and procedures may result in a muting of your microphone or in dismissal from the hearing. One other item, if you are planning on testifying, either on behalf of the applicant or as a member of the public, we do ask that you keep your cameras off until you are called upon or until you start your presentation. That way we can focus the public's attention on the members of the commission. In terms of participating, instructions on how to participate in the public hearing are listed on the agenda. For those who would like to call in, please call 1-929-205-6099. Enter meeting ID 896-7657-1182 and passcode 920127. Again, that's telephone number 1-929-205-6099, meeting ID 896-7657-1182, and passcode 920127. If you encounter any problems calling into the hearing, please call 860-429-3330 and a staff member will assist you. And with that, the public hearing that is on your agenda this evening is which was scheduled for 7 p.m. start time, is the special permit application of the Standard at Four Corners LLC and Haven Communities LLC applicants, KRCL LLC and E&I Associates LLC owners for a mixed-use project including 398 residential units and approximately 15,000 square feet of commercial space on 3 parcels located at 1717, 1733, and 1753 Stores Road. Assessor's parcel IDs 8.15.10, 8.15.9, and 8.15.8 respectively, and an adjacent vacant parcel, assessor's parcel ID 8.15.9-1, PZC file 1372-2.
Public hearing is opened at 7:53 with members present: Ahua, Corsi, Chandy, Cooley, Cotton, Fertoni, Plant, and Ward, and alternates DeVivo, Butch, and Manville. DeVivo is seated for absent members.
All set, Mr. Chairman?
All set. Oh, one more. What am I missing?
You're missing the legal notice.
Legal notice. Okay. Legal notice.
Communications. Sorry, John, give me one more second.
That's okay.
So the following notice was published in the Chronicle on November 3rd and November 10th, 2021. The Mansfield Planning and Zoning Commission will hold the following public hearing on Monday, November 15th, 2021 via a web-based virtual meeting to hear comments regarding the following application. 7 p.m. special permit application of the Standard at Four Corners LLC and Haven Communities LLC applicant in the ad, KRCL LLC and E&I Associates LLC owners for a mixed-use project including 398 residential units and approximately 15,000 square feet of commercial space on 3 parcels located at 1717, 1733, and 1753 Stores Road. Assessors parcel IDs 8.15.10, 8.15.9, 8.15.8 respectively, and an adjacent vacant parcel, assessors parcel ID 8.15.9-1, PZC file number 1372-2. The application includes requests for the following: density bonus of 8 dwelling units per acre and 15 bedrooms per acre per Article 10, Section B.5.d. A density bonus of 3.3 dwelling units per acre per Article 10, Section W.7, and a reduction to minimum parking requirements, Article 10, Section D.7.c. No information from the public shall be received after the close of the public hearing. Additional information regarding this application is available in the planning office. Paul Aho Chair, Vera Ward Secretary. And in addition to the communications that were listed on your agenda for this evening, a communication was received on November 15th, 2021 from Paul Stern. That email has been added to the agenda packet. And with that, I have completed all of that I need to do.
Okay, so the applicant can speak.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is John Nuff. I'm an attorney with an office at 147 Broad Street in Milford, Connecticut. And I'm here tonight on behalf of the various applicants and property owners that Linda has enumerated on a couple of occasions already. We're really happy to be back before you this evening to present this really wonderful project. We know that many of you are familiar with this development as you're in your role as commission members. And for those of you who are new to the commission, congratulations and welcome. And my guess is that you're probably familiar with it, at least in a more general sense, just as members of the public. And we did receive some public attention, and it was an interesting summer. So we're really happy to be back before you. Before we get into the details, and we're going to try to present a very thorough but concise presentation. We are sympathetic to, Linda's concern about late nights on a Monday, so we're going to try to do this as efficiently as possible. But before we get into the substance, I want to introduce my client, Chase Powell from Landmark Properties. So, Chase.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for once again hearing our application tonight. As Sean mentioned, we're excited once again about what we're presenting before you tonight. My name is Chase Powell. I'm the developer working on this project on behalf of Landmark Properties. As many of you have probably gathered by now, our company name has changed from the previous application from Haven to Landmark since this project was initially contemplated. Haven and Landmark entered a strategic partnership on all of Haven's projects moving forward. And so hence the name change you're seeing today. But with that, I'd say there's a lot of positives to that. At Landmark, we're a vertically integrated company with development, property management, and general contracting capabilities all under one umbrella. So that's really a benefit to the project as a whole with kind of one unified ownership group here. And with that said, like I said, we're excited to see the project move forward, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you guys may have tonight. Thank you.
All right, Chase, here we go. Already starting sharing. So thanks, Sarah. So we can go on to the next slide. So just to introduce everybody that's going to be part of the team and presenting to you this evening. As I noted, my name is John Nuff, and my colleague Sarah has been tremendously supportive and helpful in presenting this application and getting everything together. She is with us this evening. As you just heard from Chase Powell from Landmark Properties. Our professional engineer is Jeff Board from Bowler Engineering. Leslie Fanger and Matt Merva, also from Bowler, are our landscape architects. Matt will be presenting this evening. Our architect from Dwell Design Studio is Dean Davis, And our traffic engineer is Aaron Fredette from McMahon Engineering. So as you've heard already, subject parcel is 23 acres, it's spanning 4 different parcels. We are located in a planned business 3 zone. A portion is in the flood hazard zone. Some of you may recall that a zone change was approved in the spring from flood hazard to planned business 3. Of course, all of our proposed development is in the planned business 3 zone, none of which is in the flood hazard zone. And as we've noted, it's a mixed use project permitted subject to special permit approval. Okay, next. Development details is a multifamily residential and retail development comprised of 7 buildings, mix of 1, 2, 3 bedroom units for a total of 398 units with the bonuses that were detailed, and approximately 15,000 square feet of retail and service available in 3 of the buildings. Specifically with regard to the commercial opportunities, 15,000 square feet. We don't have any tenants yet, of course, way too premature for that, but we anticipate neighborhood and service retail, not only to service the residents of the development, but also members of the Mansfield community. Okay, next. This application has already received a very thorough review by various commissions in the town of Mansfield. Certainly this commission has approved it as sitting in this inland wetland capacity. Last February, as I noted, we have a zoning map amendment from last June. We've been through Parks and Natural Resources, Economic Development, Conservation, Design Review, Traffic Authority, Water System Advisory Committee, all with very positive responses. As I noted, most of you are either specifically or generally aware of the project. And so our goal tonight is to go through the site design, engineering, landscape architecture, and traffic. And then I think once we're back before you in December, probably December 20th, I think, after discussing things with Linda this afternoon, we'll be responding to staff comments and getting into more of the details after tonight's overview. As I noted, we're going to try to keep this relatively concise this evening to give the commission a thorough understanding before we're digging into the details. So next slide, please. This is an aerial photograph of the existing parcels. As you know, as we've noted, there are 3 parcels that identify specific addresses. There's a tiny triangle up by Storrs Road, which is the parcel that does not have a specific address. And what's important here is that we are staying within the existing development envelope. So I just want to preface this by talking a little bit about the history of your plan of conservation and development, because the town for a long time has had a very clear vision of what you want in terms of the town's desires in terms of new development, where it should be located, how it should be laid out in terms of the groundwork that was required to allow this application to come forward, and why you want this type of development in terms of the positive impacts that it can create for the town. And in addition to those things, you were also very specific about the appearance and the aesthetics of projects such as these. As you know, the property is in the Four Corners area, which back in 2006 was identified as a priority mixed-use development area. And that's an area where higher density commercial uses and mixed commercial residential uses are encouraged. And the town began actively working to address water and sewer needs in order to facilitate mixed-use development since the early 2000s. It's interesting that one of the commission members who was obviously quite relevant to that effort retired this evening, and obviously we applaud his efforts to make this happen for the town of Mansfield. This focus on this area of Mansfield is important, of course, and it makes a lot of sense because it is literally a gateway to the town and to the university, and we really create a wonderful sense of arrival for those arriving to the UConn campus and the town in general. So next slide, please. The same theme was repeated in your 2015 POCD. Specifically, the 2015 future land use map designates the Four Corners area as a mixed-use center, which per the POCD, are areas specifically designated for higher density residential uses and mixed-use projects. Specifically, as the highest and most intensive mixed-use areas of Mansfield, mixed-use centers are capable of absorbing a significant number of new housing units within a compact, walkable environment. And that's specifically what this project proposes. So in fulfillment of the POCD, the town completed infrastructure upgrades in the Four Corners area that were necessary to support this type of development, specifically the public water extension, and then in 2020, the sewer system construction. The town also recently updated its zoning regulations to allow for a mixture of multifamily housing and commercial uses in the Four Corners area. And in October 2020, it enacted new regulations specific for new housing projects. And the intent of the regulations is really important. I just want to call your attention to those. So this is in Section 10, Part B. The intent is these provisions are intended to ensure that new multifamily residential development provides housing options that meet the needs of all residents, including singles, families, seniors, students, and individuals with special needs. Second, to promote vibrant neighborhoods comprised of residents of all ages, incomes, and backgrounds. And last, encourage high quality design of new multifamily residential and group dwelling developments when combined with the architectural design standards of Article 10, Section R. So we are proposing a project that meets all of these intents of your regulations. So specifically with regard to the POCD, we are also addressing these issues, which are to focus efforts to expand off-campus undergraduate housing and also providing for affordable housing. We are providing affordable housing not only in the development itself, but also providing a fee in lieu of to encourage other affordable housing in the town. Next, please. The POCD also provides aesthetic and architectural standards geared to creating a true sense of place, which is what we all really yearn for, regardless of our stage in life. And some of those design requirements are building close to the edge of the streets, vertical elements to create a sense of enclosure and outdoor spaces, human scale lighting, parking located in the rear so that, to diminish the importance of vehicles, using focal points such as central promenades and green spaces, and the use of natural site features in the design. So if you combine your plan of conservation development and your regulations, it's really an invitation for us to partner with the town to execute and help realize the town's vision, including its very high design standards and the provision of affordable housing. So with that quick introduction, I want to introduce Jeff Board from Bowler Engineering, who will take you through the site plan. Oh, I'm sorry. Very quickly, there are a number of economic benefits, and putting aside the substantial amount of taxes that will be paid, there's also a number of jobs that will be created, both as a result of the construction itself and for the project itself in terms of management jobs with regard to the residential, and then jobs as well related to the various commercial tenants that we would have in the 15,000 square foot area. So with that, I'll give you Jeff Board.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, John. For the record, my name is Jeff Ford. I'm a professional engineer in the state of Connecticut with Bowler Engineering, located at 65 LaSalle Road in West Hartford, Connecticut. And as John alluded to, the site is currently zoned PB3, consisting of 23 acres. The existing development slopes mainly from north to south, north being to top of page on this exhibit. And just for the purposes of this, what you're looking at is just a colorized rendering of the current site plan that was submitted as part of your site plan packages this evening. So generally, a couple big things to note. This is a redevelopment. So a lot of what's out there today in the current buildings, largely untreated stormwater, for example, which I'll get into in a little bit as to how we're correcting that. And then other amenities that we're going to be providing here that make it a much better project for the town and for the applicant here. It's a redevelopment, including 7 buildings, mixed use residential component with 398 units. And starting from west, the left of page to the right, we have building 1000, which is a 3-story residential structure. To the right of that, we have building 2,000, which is a 3-story residential. Then we have 3,000, which is a 4-story retail and residential, so ground floor retail. Building 4,000 is the residential leasing and amenities building. It's 4 stories as well. 5,000, as you're moving to the east, is a 4-story retail residential. 6,000 is the same 4-story retail residential, and 7,000 is the 5-story residential. That's basically wrapping a 5-story parking deck in the back there. So that parking structure houses 443 parking spaces. There's 221 surface spaces for a total of 655 spaces on site. There's currently two full access driveways being proposed. One of the benefits of a project like this, when you redevelop it, and it'll be a benefit as we move into DOT permitting, is that there's currently 3 curb cuts on a site, and anytime we're able to close up an existing curb cut, it works in our favor and the DOT's. It just provides safer maneuvers in and out of the site. So that was one of the bigger benefits here. We're adding pedestrian connectivity throughout the site via sidewalk network, crosswalks, and providing a sidewalk along the frontage. We also have located a bus stop internal to the site. There's currently an existing sign for a bus stop at the existing entrance to the abandoned restaurant that's out there that the bus would use, basically WRTD. That was the end of their route, and they would turn into that driveway, use it as a turnaround, stop there, and then leave the site. So having the configuration that we have right now with the driveway to the east and west provides a safe way for the bus to basically come into the site, pick up, and then exit the other drive aisle. Part of the review process and the thorough reviews that go through the town approval process here is that we've had several third-party reviewers, have comment letters, and we went through it for a year now. So we've run several vehicular turning movements through here. We've coordinated with fire to make sure that the largest fire truck can circulate the site. We've run trash trucks in coordination with the refuse coordinator, and we'll get into the details of that a bit later and or at the next meeting. And then another big benefit of what we're providing here is that all of the lighting fixtures on site are LED dark sky compliant throughout. And with that, Sarah, you can go to the next slide. And here, I did want to touch on, and I mentioned it earlier just in my opening, about the improvements to stormwater management. So we provided several best management practices, as you're seeing here, and this is just a colorized version of the grading and drainage plan. The darker blue being the underground detention systems, and the lighter blue being other natural BMPs that we're using on site here. So we are complying with the 2004 Connecticut Stormwater Quality Manual. That basically means we're mimicking existing drainage patterns and matching or reducing peak flows throughout the development here. And one of the big benefits is that we are providing the 80% TSS removal set forth in that water quality manual. So I know that was a big deal as we worked through conservation and wetlands, where currently all of that stormwater that's on site is flowing untreated off of the impervious area that's out there and directly into some of the wetland areas. So there's going to be a net reduction in the flows and an improvement in water quality as part of this. We've done that by a series, and again, it's rare in a redevelopment situation we have as much room as we did on site to provide a lot of these natural BMPs, but they basically consist of water quality grass swales along the perimeters with check dams. We have a series of sediment forebays, rain gardens throughout in some of the courtyard areas of these buildings, underground water quality recharge basins with isolator rows for pretreatment. And we have hydrodynamic separators that had come out of one of the reviews as well, and then hooded deep sump catch basins. So all that to say, it's a pretty robust stormwater management system. And on top of that, we also provided an operations and maintenance manual that was also reviewed by the third-party review engineer that basically acts as a maintenance log and guidance for cleaning and maintaining all of these structures on site. We also designed the erosion and sediment control. You can leave it there, Sarah, it's fine. We also designed the soil and the sediment erosion control measures in accordance with the 2002 guidelines, Connecticut erosion and sediment control guidelines, including temporary construction entrances, silt fence along the perimeter, soil stockpile areas, temporary sediment traps, and dewatering bags. And we had done it in phases as well as we worked through the process here, where it was a phased sediment plan that had accounted for the excavations of a lot of these building footprints and what was happening throughout the duration of construction, as opposed to just a one-size-fits-all plan. So it was really customized for this site. And the next slide, Sarah. And one of the big things, and the majority of you on the commission from Inland Wetlands and Conservation here will remember that we did introduce this conservation easement. And what this was a culmination of some of the comments that we received. And we basically dedicated the area that's shaded in blue, which was 12.1 acres. And I believe that was about 52% of the total site area of the 23 acres that we had back to the town as a conservation easement over the property. So felt that was a good addition here to the site. And then with that, I wanted to turn it over to Matt Merva. He's Bowler's New England Director of Planning and Landscape Architecture to describe some of the landscaping and site amenities.
And thank you, Jeff. Can everybody hear me?
Gotcha.
Great. So my name is Matt Merva. I direct our planning and landscape architectural group at Bowler. I've been working closely with Leslie Fanger from my office on this project, who many of you have met before, but excited to be here tonight and just walk through some of the amenities that we've been discussing and have incorporated into the plans here. We're really excited about the fact that Landmark's goals really intersect with the town's POCD here in a lot of great ways, having the buildings front on the street, having these spaces that are created between the buildings that are human scale and encourage activity. And we've designed a series of spaces that are linked by pedestrian connections that we really think are going to enliven the space and be useful to residents and folks in town alike. And if we can just click ahead to the next slide, Sarah. This is just an overview of the west side of the plan. There are 2 sheets, but we, as I mentioned, have a series of spaces. There's a dog park in the upper left corner. Thank you very much. There's a space we're calling the linear park between buildings 1000 and 2000, which creates pedestrian access, but also areas for seating and relaxing. We've got rain gardens in the courtyards. Jeff Board mentioned some of the best management practices that we're using from a stormwater standpoint. These are really integrated into the landscape, and we're excited to make those features in the landscape that can be utilized and viewed, but also perform a function for stormwater that are really cutting edge. And then moving down to the south on the plan here, we've got the pool area. This will be the only area on the site that's really just for the residents, but all of the other spaces are open to the general public. And then moving further to the east, you'll see the park on Stores, just on, yes, exactly, right where your hand is right there. That's an open space that'll have specialty outdoor seating. And I'll go into some enlargements of these various areas in a second. And then just moving on to the next slide, if you would, Sarah. So that's the other half of that park that you could see on the last sheet. And then moving further to the east, you see the boulevard. This is the entry into the site. That'll be very pedestrian focused with ground floor retail. And as you enter the site, you come to a water feature at that circle. That's sort of the main entry feature that brings people in and is, again, very pedestrian friendly, pedestrian priority to the space here. Clicking ahead to the next slide, if you would. So just to give you kind of a sense of the scale of these spaces, we've got some images down below of what these features will look like. So the corridor, the linear park between building 1000 and 2000, we plan to have overhead catenary lighting there in that zigzag pattern that you see connecting the 2 buildings. That really brings the scale of that space down. We've got pergola features in various seating areas along that main spine. So lots of different spaces for people to gather in, not just one large space, but several, breaking it down into smaller spaces that smaller clusters of people can gather in. We're featuring 2 fire pits in this courtyard there. Those are the circular areas you see in the specialty paving areas. And then the pavers really bring that sense of scale down and create, warm, inviting pedestrian environments at that ground level. This will also feature light columns at the entry to the space from the pedestrian entries into the buildings. And we've got some images of those in the upper right corner of those images there. Moving over to the pool area, this will be a focal feature for the residents. It features 3 separate hot tub areas surrounding the pool, plenty of seating, fire pit areas there as well, tables and chairs, and just a great place to lounge and relax with some overhead shade structures as well. Moving on to the next one, if you would, Sarah. So the park on Stores here, this is sort of spill out space from some of that ground floor retail, generous lawn area with soft seating, some outdoor workstations you can see in the darker gray square on the paved area. Great spill out from that ground level retail space, but plenty of lounge seating and shade structures. And really very, very public facing. This is facing right out onto the main drive on Stores. So it'd be very inviting to the public to use this generous lawn area here. Moving over to the retail corridor, this just enlarges the area I was describing on the previous plan, but you can see a little more detail on what those rain gardens will look like. We're actually turning that into a seating function with a seat cap on those gabion walls. Those walls are allowing water to filter through into the planted area in the center. But we're excited to make that a feature and definitely a great way to handle the stormwater on site. And then the image on the left, the fountain feature, that's what we see, something like that in the center of this circle on entry from Stores into the site. A real identity marker for the project and for the property, and just a great feature that'll be lit up at night and very accessible. And with that, I think we can wrap up the landscape, and glad to answer any questions that people might have at the end. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Matt. Our next presenter is Dean Davis from Dwell Design Studio.
Hey, good evening. Thank you. This is Dean. We can go to the next slide. So this is an aerial architectural rendering of the overall site, overall project. And, we touched on some of the drivers for the design of this project earlier in the presentation, the design principles for mixed-use projects. And when we start thinking about a project like this and what the design wants to be, we start by thinking of the massing of the buildings in addition to just the architectural design. And there's a lot of, the design criteria for 4 corners, in addition to just the feeling that we wanted to have for this site, drove the layout of these buildings. And it was decided pretty early that we would break this into multiple buildings. And we landed on this development of 7 separate buildings along Stores Avenue to really help break down the massing of the buildings and the overall project. And this view really shows that most clearly, where from the west, you have buildings 1,000 and 2,000 that are our 3-story buildings. The linear park that Matt spoke of is between those 2 buildings. We transition to our first 4-story building in building 3,000, where we also begin to introduce the retail base of our buildings and our first entry into the project. That frames building 4,000 at the back of the property and creates a nice vista and feeling of community within those 4 buildings. We transition around the park on Stores, which Matt spoke of, And that brings us to building 5,000, which shares the main entry boulevard with building 6,000. Both of those also have a retail base with our multifamily above. And then the larger building 7,000 is at the back of the property with our iconic kind of clock tower, almost reminiscent of a city hall building at the back on a public square. So we really, broke this project down into multiple buildings to try to help break down the mass of these buildings instead of doing one large project. And then within each individual building, we really kind of tried to take the design criteria to heart, where there's a statement that says new buildings should be designed to minimize the mass of the buildings, utilizing smaller visual components, varied roof lines, even different building materials and colors. That led us in our discussions to think about the development of a village that seemed more organic and seemed built over time, was an assemblage of individual buildings that were attached and joined together as opposed to one large monolithic structure. And I think you'll start to see those individual elements as we dive into these buildings a little closer. Sarah, we can go next. So this again is starting from the west at building one, and the image on the left shows building 1,000 in the distance, building 2,000 in the center, and then building 3,000 where we introduced the retail is in the foreground. You can see the first entry into the project there as well. And you start to get a sense of the flavor of the design of these buildings. Very traditional detailing, smaller groupings of individual elements that are assembled together to create this real village feel. And I like this second image with the building 4,000 at the back that really frames that view and creates that nice pedestrian scale of these buildings. Next. Moving a little farther down stores, this is building 5,000 and 6,000 in the foreground. Again, you see the retail base, the boulevard entry that takes you back to building 7,000 in the background, where we have the terminus of the clock tower, and the alignment of the top of building 7,000 aligns with the roof elements on buildings 5 and 6. So that scale really works well together. And we've done some really unique things on a building of this type by grouping these balconies together in unique ways. So we have units sharing large balconies that you don't often see in a multifamily development. And we really wanted to do that to give that sense of these individual buildings that were assembled together. Next. This is a view looking a little farther. We've turned to the left now, looking just at building 6,000 to give you a better sense of what that storefront streetscape feels like, and the assembling of these 4 individual buildings together as one. The very traditional treatment of the retail storefronts so that you really get that village feel. And this is moving into the development a little farther. You can see building 6,000 again on the left, building 7,000 at the back, where you have the public courtyard. The fountain element that Matt spoke of is in the center of this image, and then the clock tower at the back. These are the building plans. I don't know if there's someone else on our team that wants to speak to these a little bit, but it shows the breakdown of the different units. The affordable units you see highlighted in the pink. The family units we've highlighted in the blue. The outdoor spaces in this plan is related to the balconies that you see around the perimeter of the buildings. So you can see that the different types of units are distributed evenly throughout the project. There's a further, we can go through these if we need to, but it just shows a breakdown of the different unit types that are in the project. And I believe that is it for the architectural presentation, but again, we can welcome any comments and answer any questions.
Thanks, Dean. Our next presenter is Aaron Fredette from McMahon to discuss traffic.
Thank you. Again, for the record, Aaron Fredette with McMahon Associates. So earlier this year, we conducted a full traffic impact study of the proposed project, which included a study area with the 2 signalized intersections east of the project site, as well as the project site driveways. That impact study was peer reviewed by the town's peer review consultant. And when we were in receipt of those comments, we, in addition to providing responses to each of those comments, we actually fully revised and updated our traffic impact study to more fully address the comments that were provided by the town's peer reviewer. Next slide, please. Those comments primarily addressed revisiting the future conditions, for specifically future traffic volumes within the study area, making sure that the number of trips estimated for the project site matched the most recent site plans for the project. We also updated the capacity analysis, which looks at the operations of the 2 adjacent signals based on additional coordination we had done with CONDOT. And lastly, used all of that information to update our capacity analysis results. Next slide, please. And based on that revised capacity analysis, we're continuing to see a very limited and minimal impact on the adjacent roadways and study area intersections with the additional project trips estimated as part of this project. The project site driveways are shown to operate at level of service D or better, which in an area like this, which has some development and activity, is generally considered acceptable. And the sight lines, once everything is put in place for the 2 proposed project site driveways, are proposed to meet the Connecticut DOT requirements for the operating speeds along Storrs Road. Next slide, please. And so when we compiled that, after we compiled and submitted that impact study, it was then again peer reviewed by the town's peer review consultant, and we were in receipt of those additional comments. And essentially, they noted that the majority of the comments for the impact study had been addressed as part of this revised update. A few of the things that they did request additional information on was the coordination regarding the proposed bus stop within the site. So as was mentioned previously, we are proposing to provide space within the development for a proposed bus stop, and are just in the process of determining where exactly that's going to be. And so the request was to provide information for that. And then the other request was to provide documentation with Connecticut DOT regarding potential work within the state highway to ensure that we were going to be able to meet our sight lines and that we didn't get too far in the process before they may have some potential issue. Although we as a project team don't see one at this time. And then moving forward, should the project move past local permitting, there is additional review that needs to be conducted through both the OSTA process and an encroachment permit process with Connecticut DOT. So there will be additional review through those 2 permitting processes as well. Again, I'd be happy to go into any additional detail or answer any questions at the conclusion, but I think for now, I will turn it back over to John to wrap up our presentation.
Thanks, Aaron. So I think we did a pretty good job keeping things fairly concise for the commission. Obviously, we're here to answer any questions and obviously to hear from the public. As I noted at the beginning, we are in receipt of staff comments and third-party review comments. We are in the process of compiling comprehensive responses to all those that we look forward to presenting to you in December. But in the meantime, as I noted, we're all happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions from the commission? Remember, you'll have another shot at them in December.
I have a question.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
I'm sure this group is familiar with our current downtown stores and the challenges of retail in that location. You'll see the papered over storefronts and the lack of convenient parking. We have parking limited to 30 minutes and clear resistance of residents to use the parking garage to do their shopping. How does your project address those concerns, and how is this an improvement over the stores downtown?
So if the question is, do we have sufficient parking? We certainly do have sufficient parking. We provide parking obviously for all the residential units as well as the commercial space. I mean, and I understand your concern because you're asking sort of two sort of opposing questions. One is, how are you going to tenant your property considering the challenges to bricks and mortar retail, but at the same time, how are you going to provide sufficient parking? If that's what your question is, correct?
Well, is it realistic also to think that the students from building 1000 are going to walk all the way over to the parking structure every time and not use retail parking spaces?
No, I think it is reasonable, because those folks, many times people would prefer to park in a parking garage. And so because of obviously, shaded in the summertime and covered in the winter, so, you don't have to remove your snow. So, so Landmark and Haven has considerable experience building these types of communities throughout the country, including in areas of similar to Connecticut. So yes, I don't think it's unreasonable that the residents will be parking in the locations where we anticipate that they should be parking and not taking up the parking, particularly on the boulevard along the retail uses.
Thank you.
Yeah, let me jump in real quick as well, John. I think a couple things. Number one, I believe, Craig, you asked how are we going to differentiate ourselves from stores. I would say, well, we don't know who the retailers are going to be right now, or the commercial tenants would be right now. I would say, generally speaking, what we've always envisioned here is that the tenant makeup would be a little more of what I'd call light retail or commercial in nature. Whereas it could be, potentially a co-working space or, an office that likes having a retail presence, like a local real estate office or dentist or something along those lines, where they want almost like more of a retail feel, but they're much more commercial oriented. So I would say, number one, I think that's how we're a little bit different than stores, which has much more of your kind of heavy retail presence of, active restaurants and people that need to kind of jump in and out of their cars like frequently. In addition to that, I think one other thing that kind of differentiates us here is that we'll have our in-house property management team that's actively going to be managing parking on site as well as the retail / commercial parking spaces. So for what that's worth, I think it's something we've seen on past projects that we can kind of effectively manage here.
Yeah, go ahead, Katie.
I have a question, and I don't know if I'm really allowed to ask it. Have you approached the retailers, the businesses that are already on that site about relocating to your retail space?
We haven't had direct conversations with any of the current tenants, but it's something we're certainly open to, and we're going to be looking to fill this commercial space here. So we're certainly open to anyone that's conforms with zoning and looking to actively lease our space.
Now, don't be afraid to call Stores Road, Stores Road. I heard Stores Avenue, Stores Boulevard. I think we know it as Stores Road. Any other questions tonight? Okay. Now, usually I call a break after 2 hours, so maybe we could take a 5-minute break here before we get to the, would this be a good time to ask if there's anyone who wants to call in? Linda?
Yes, and there are, the applicant has kindly identified everyone that has logged in from their team, which leaves me with 2 folks who I'm not sure of, Rennie Steinway and someone who is denoted as AS. So if you are interested in speaking at the public hearing, please let us know. Same with Mike Benevento. I know you were here for the dog lane discussion earlier, but you are still logged in. So if you are interested in speaking at this public hearing, please let us know.
Okay, well, let's take a 5-minute break until 8:45, and then we'll come back and do those public comments or questions. Okay, Linda, you can start up our videos.
All right, so I did notice that during the break, I thought we had someone join us, but he's not showing up on my, oh, there he is, Paul. So we do have Paul Stern, who appears to have joined us. Again, we do still have someone named AS. I do not know who that is. So if you're interested in speaking.
Hey, Linda, it's John. That's my partner, Amy Sujins.
Oh, thank you.
Linda, can you start my video?
Oh, did I, when I stopped you, did I, oh. I'm gonna have to do the same thing for Vera. I turned people's cameras off who had left. So I've asked Vera to restart as well.
Okay.
There's Vera. All right. So with that, I think one of our folks, Renee, has seen Renee has seems to have dropped off the meeting during our 5-minute break. So with that, I believe the only member of the public that we have 2 members of the public present. One is Paul Stern, who did submit a communication to you today, which was uploaded to your packet. The other is Mike Benevento. So I guess the order, Mr. Chair, that you typically use is speakers in support, speakers in opposition, and those with questions or undecided. So I think for Mr. Stern's communication, I would guess, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, that he falls into the opposed category. Mr. Benevento, do you have any comments that you'd like to offer on this application?
He may have been here for the earlier one.
He was, but he hasn't left. So I didn't know if he was sticking around and had comments on this application as well. So with that, everyone else that is here is either a member of the commission staff or on the project team based on the list that the applicant provided.
Okay, so Paul, you have the floor.
Thank you. Can you hear me? I can't see you, so
I can hear you.
Can you see me?
I can see you too.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. I don't think I necessarily fall so much into the opposed category as I do in favor of affordable housing category. And one of my big concerns about what I like to call a student beehive is whether this kind of a development, even though it's pitched as multifamily by the developer, I'm concerned that it isn't really in practice the kind of affordable housing that Mansfield needs. And if the commission is going to go forward with an application like this, I think the least it can do on behalf of the town and its need for affordable housing is to insist that the applicant meet the 10% affordable housing minimum that's on our books. I know there's a payment in lieu of and all that, but frankly, I don't agree that while we're below the 10% threshold that we should be allowing those payments. But be that as it may, I'd be happy to take the developer's money if they also met the 10% requirement. So, and there are two other little things I want to point out. I've written you a long letter. I would hope that you would read it. I'll probably write you another one before this is all over. But there are two things that I wanted to point out that I think the public ought to be aware of. And one of them is that in the planning director's notes, she mentions that she would like to see prohibited the use of keyed locks on the bedroom doors. And I think that's a really good idea, because what it does is it makes those units suitable for families more than a bunch of students who want their individual privacy. The other thing she mentions is that she would like to not see multiple leases on individual units, which again speaks to the need to put families in there, young families in there, rather than students who are, assigned a roommate. So that's the gist of it. But like I said, I wrote you a long letter. I wish you would read it. I don't want to take up your whole night, but those are the points I wanted to make.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
So, do we have any reason to keep this hearing? Do we continue to December, or how does that work?
Yes, so I have prepared a motion to adjourn the hearing to December 20th at 6:30 p.m., which I can share on screen.
Okay.
Vera, do you have a question before we do that? So this is an opportunity for people to ask questions. If the applicant has any additional points they want to add before we continue, we can do that as well.
Right.
I can't myself, but can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I agree with Mr. Stern. I wondered if they were renting by bedroom or by unit.
It is by unit.
Well, I think, John, just to answer that a little bit better, I think what we've seen in the market up there is that, and what Linda had said in her comments, is not to preclude the ability to rent by the unit, which is what you see currently at Store Center. You can either rent the entire unit, or you can enter into individual leases by the bed. And I think, we would probably offer similar to what's in line with the market, which is doing the same. Not necessarily you need to rent this property by the bed, but we certainly would be open to that.
I agree with Mr. Stern that will take away from our families wanting to even be there. So maybe it's the affordability of the units that we have to be concerned about.
Any other questions for tonight? Do we need a motion to continue the hearing? Yes.
You do, and I will share my screen for you with that.
Okay. Okay, someone like to put that motion forward?
I can put it forward.
Okay, thank you.
I Cotton move to adjourn the public hearing on the special permit application of the Standard at Four Corners LLC and Haven Communities LLC for a mixed-use project, 3 parcels located at 1717.
Sorry. There you go.
Located on 3 parcels located at 1717, 1733, and 1753 Stores Road, and an adjacent vacant parcel, PZC file 1372-2, to December 20th, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. via virtual meeting.
Moved by Cotton,
Second by DeVivo.
second by DeVivo. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, so the public hearing is adjourned for tonight
At 8:55 p.m.
at 8:55 p.m. Okay, so we go on to new business. We have,
Thank you.
thank you for your
Good night.
presentation. Good night.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
So we have 4 interpretation of zoning regulations that actually come out of this application.
Yeah, so for the commission's information, one of the things I will note about this is these are interpretations of regulations. So this is as staff was reviewing the special permit application of for the standard at Four Corners. We came up with 4 questions as we read the regulations and want to be sure that we are correctly interpreting them. I do want to note that while the questions came up during the review of this project, the answers would not only apply to this project. So the answers would apply anytime these particular questions or these particular regulations were applied to other applications. So the first one that you see is actually a confirmation that we have been doing this correctly from the standpoint of pool decks. So the first thing you will see is that our setback requirements, we do have a preface to the schedule of dimensional requirements, which notes that those standards, which are basically your setbacks from front, side, and rear property lines, as well as building height, things of that nature, apply to all lots, buildings, structures, and site improvements, including parking, loading, outdoor recreational facilities such as tennis, volleyball, or basketball courts that are distinct from driveway/parking areas or lawns, and outside storage areas. So the question that I just wanted to receive confirmation on is how we deal with pool, and I use the word decks because there literally is not another term. I did check with the building official on this. But pool decks that are basically concrete and at grade. So if you have an in-ground pool and you have, kind of your area around it, referred to as the pool deck, that is literally just is no different than a patio, with the exception of the fact that it's providing you access to the swimming pool. Whether that is subject to the setback requirements. In talking with Jolene, and when this question comes up with single family homes, the way she has interpreted this is that if it's just a concrete patio at grade, it's not subject to the setback requirements, because that is something, if you just proposed a patio without a pool, we would not tell you had to be 25 feet from this, 35 feet from the side property line, 60 feet from the rear property line, because we typically apply those only to structures. And so I just wanted to, so the first question is just to confirm that we're doing that correctly. What I will note is that, we'll continue to, if the commission agrees, we'll continue to apply it that way. I will note that for larger pools, such as the one associated with the project, any pool that's coming in as part of a special permit, the commission has the ability, if they feel it's warranted, to require a larger setback than what's required. So even though the interpretation would allow the water area of the pool to be kind of be that dividing line as to what needs to meet the setback. The commission could, if they felt it was important during the review of a specific project, to apply a larger setback to those structures. So that's the first issue for your consideration. And Mr. Chair, I guess here's my question. Do you want to discuss these one by one, or do you want me to just run through all 4 of them?
It would be better if we do it one by one so we don't forget about them. Now, so that means that if we do the setback, in this case, it's not a precedent for others. We could consider other ones in the future.
Well,
differently.
I wouldn't say it's a precedent, but it's essentially, again, this would be confirmation of how the zoning agent has applied this to pools that come across her desk on a regular basis. So pools associated with single family homes that don't come to you because you don't typically review a single family home and associated structures. Just to note that if there would be a pool associated with a project that does need a special permit review, you always have the ability as the commission to say, that's great that the setback requirement is, is 50 feet from the rear property line. I don't know if that's not what we're dealing with in this case, but in this particular case, given what the abutting land use is, we actually think you need to be further away. You always have that ability through the special permit process. With a site plan, no. With a site plan, it's just, do you meet the requirements or not?
Any questions, comments about that?
That's why the commercial breaks along. So let's look at the background here.
Seems like a reasonable thing to me to have that interpretation of the setback.
All right.
Let's go on to the next one.
So the next one deals with building height bonuses. So this is a provision that you adopted, I want to say in 2019, and you have yet to actually apply it. So this is the first time that this is coming up. And the provision authorizes the commission to grant height bonuses in certain districts. And the way it reads is that to encourage the use of structured parking and reduce impervious cover in planned business and institutional districts, the following number of structured parking stories incorporated within the base of a building shall not count towards maximum building height. This exception includes stories with a mix of occupied space and parking pursuant to building type requirements. The first one is in the Plan Business 1 and Plan Business 3 zones, it's 1 story, and Plan Business 4 and I zones, it's 3 stories. So the issue that has come up is, does the height bonus provision apply to buildings where occupied space is wrapped around the parking structure and the parking structure is not part of a building podium where occupied floors are located above a parking garage? And so the applicant I did provide in this particular case, since it came up with regard to this project. I will also note that this question came up in your consideration of the capstone project, which was withdrawn before you ended up making an interpretation of this. The applicant with the pending project has provided the following explanation or justification that they feel as to why they feel that this applies. The height of the parking structure attached to building 7,000 does not exceed the height of the building. The term incorporated is not defined in the regulations and is defined in Merriam-Webster's dictionary as united in one body. In addition, synonyms for incorporated include fused and joined. Based on this information, as well as the regulation's specific reference to the fact that the exception includes stories with a mix of occupied space and parking pursuant to building type requirements, the attached parking structure qualifies for the 1-story height bonus referenced. I will note that the dictionary that the applicant cited is not the one that our regulations refer to. Our regulations require us to use Connecticut General Statutes in the Random House Dictionary of the English Language for determining the meaning of undefined terms. And the Random House definition for incorporated is similar to Merriam-Webster's. It is formed or constituted as a corporation, which does not apply, or combined in one body made part of. So from a staff perspective, the stated intent of the provision was to encourage the use of structured parking and reduce impervious cover in planned business and institutional districts. So if you have stories that are including a mix of occupied space and parking, that provision applying that exception and that bonus to structures where you have that parking garages wrapped by occupied space is a reasonable interpretation. The other thing that I would note is that, or recommend, is that if you were to make that interpretation, that you would do specifically require a physical connection between the parking structure and occupied space, i.e. you have to be able to get from the parking garage into the occupied part of the building. And that at least 50% of the parking structure perimeter be wrapped with the occupied space. So you don't have a situation where somebody goes, oh, I can have my parking structure have one facade, one short facade of occupied space and therefore get a height bonus. Because I think that would be contrary to the intent. So that is question number 2. So basically, and I don't have an image for you, but if you think about, again, you have occupied buildings wrapping around, again, over 50% of the parking structure. Does that qualify you for a height bonus, or does it only apply when the parking structure is incorporated into essentially the base or the foundation of the building? So think of buildings in Hartford where you may have kind of the parking structure being the first 3 or 4 levels, and then you're going up for occupied space. So what you might see in a more urban area in terms of how parking structures are incorporated into the space.
Okay. It seems like a reasonable interpretation of the rules to me. Any comments from the rest of the commission? I think that particular opposition that came during the capstone deliberations was from an abutter that wanted to find every possible problem. I think that's probably true of the next one as well.
Mr. Chair, you have an excellent memory that this question was in fact raised during the capstone application. And quite frankly, I will tell you from a staff perspective, to me, this has always been clear. But given that this was raised by an abutter during the capstone project, I just decided it was better off for me to ask this and have the commission confirm that my interpretation is correct, so that we can give all applicants clear guidance on this. So the question here is how we calculate developable land area. So in terms of determining what the maximum density for multifamily residential projects is, it is based off of the figure that is in my report, which says that we don't do it on a gross land area basis. We do it on a developable land area basis. So the first thing you have to do is determine your total land area, which is done by survey. And then from that total land area, you're required to subtract the area of the following features. So acreage of wetlands and watercourses, which are by their very nature intended to be undevelopable, unless you get specific approval from the wetlands agency. The total acreage of FEMA 100-year floodplains. Again, we do not typically allow much, if anything, in those floodplain areas. The total acreage of land with steep slopes, so 15% or greater. And then we have total acreage of land subject to restrictions prohibiting development, such as a conservation easement. And there is additional clarification provided on this, which says for the purposes of this calculation, only areas subject to easements or restrictions that completely prohibit development shall be deducted from the total land area. Areas subject to utility easements, access easements, and other similar restrictions may be counted toward developable land area and do not need to be deducted from the total land area. So the question raised during the capstone project was if an applicant is proposing to dedicate a conservation easement, and in particular, if that's done as part of an inland wetlands application and therefore made a condition of approval. So an applicant comes in and says, to do this project, I'm proposing to dedicate a conservation easement, and they do that, either through the Planning and Zoning Commission or through the Wetlands Agency. Because the Wetlands Agency cannot accept easements in that form, typically what you'll see happen is the approval will be based on what someone proposed, including the dedication of that conservation easement to protect that land area. So the question that was raised was, well, if you're proposing to dedicate a conservation easement, shouldn't that area be deducted from your overall developable area? At least essentially anything that hasn't already been deducted through wetlands, steep slopes, or floodplains. I will tell you from a staff perspective, my interpretation of this is if the easement doesn't exist, no, it is not deducted because it's something that they are offering to dedicate. It is not something that exists. If there were an existing conservation easement on a property, absolutely that should be taken out of the equation. So, but again, because this was raised during another application, I thought it would be cleaner to just simply have the commission review this and say whether or not they agree with that interpretation that we can then provide to anyone who applies.
Any comments on that? I think we don't want to discourage people from providing a conservation district.
Okay. So the last one, and this is the first time this issue has come up, is in Articles 10, Section W.7.A, we allow for applicants to request density bonuses in exchange for a fee or a donation to the town's Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And the way the language is written is that you can receive a bonus of 1 dwelling unit per acre for each donation equivalent to 1% of the construction cost pursuant to the calculations that are provided. And so in this particular case, the reason this came up was in reviewing the Haven application. They are not requesting a full unit per acre bonus, so they're at partial units. The bonus they're requesting through this section is 3.3 units per acre. And as part of their calculations for the donation, they were using a 4% contribution because they were more than 3 units per acre, but less than 4 units per acre. And in reviewing it, my thought was that this is really something that we should consider prorating. So if you're looking for a 3.3 unit per acre bonus, then your fee is 3.3% of the construction value, and not ramping them up to a full 4% of construction value. So again, if that makes sense, then that is how we would direct applicants seeking to use that in the future for doing their estimated calculations.
Rating seems to make sense. Any comments on that? Okay, can we just adopt all 4 at the same time?
You can. I'm very grateful for that because I did prepare like 4 different slides in case you need to take these individually. Okay. So there is a motion that is on the screen that if you agree with all of those, you just need to start with move and go through the last bullet. The last sentence here was just to say we'll prepare additional motions if you disagree with 1 or more of these.
Okay.
And I just realized I'm seeing it, you aren't seeing it, and
we're not seeing it yet. No.
I've been reading off my memo. So I forgot I didn't have that shown for everybody to look at.
I'll be glad to move it.
Okay, thank you.
Ward moves to adopt the following interpretations of the zoning regulations. The setback bullet 1, the setback requirements contained in Article 8, Schedule of Dimensional Requirements, do not apply to concrete pool decks installed at grade, as such areas are similar in nature to concrete patios, which are not subject to the setback requirements. Bullet number 2, the building height bonus authorized by section Article 8.
Just Article 8, sorry, there's an extra.
Sorry, by Article 8, Section B, point 8A.6, is that right? Applies to buildings with occupied space connect to and wrap around at least 50% of the parking structure perimeter. Bullet number 3, the deduction of conservation easements and other easements or restrictions that totally prohibit development from total land area to determine developable land area pursuant to Article 10, Section B.5.A and Figure 10.B-1 shall not apply to areas where such easements or restrictions are proposed but do not yet exist. This interpretation also applies to easements that are proposed or required as part of the inland wetlands license process for said project. Bullet number 4, the calculation of the required donation to the town's housing trust fund pursuant to Article 10, Section W.7A shall be prorated based on the actual density bonus requested. For example, the required donation for a density bonus of 2.5 dwelling units per acre would be 2.5% of construction cost.
Okay, moved by Ward,
Second by DeVivo.
second by DeVivo. Any discussion?
Just to note that I saw a few missing words. This was probably one of the memos I threw together on very short notice on last week. So I apologize. We'll fix the missing words if you're good with that, where there were missing two and things of that nature.
Fine.
I just wanted to say the same thing. It's the second bullet, right, Linda?
Yeah, so it applies to buildings with occupied space that connect to and wrap around at least 50% of the parking structure perimeter.
That's what I wanted to point out.
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, I think we're unanimous. Okay. The end is in sight. We have to receive one more application. This is something we could do on a consent motion, right?
In the future, yes, it is.
In the future, yes. Application to amend Article 10, Section 8.4A.1 of the zoning regulations related to setbacks of wireless telecommunication sites from residences. Okay, here's a motion to receive it.
I can read it.
Okay, thank you.
Move to receive the application of the town of Mansfield for amendments to Article 10, Section Q.4.A.1 of the zoning regulations related to setbacks of wireless telecommunication facilities from residents in the SC, SDD, and PB2 zones. Refer to the town attorney for review and comment and to schedule a public hearing for December 6, 2021.
Moved by Plant,
Second by Chandy.
second by Chandy. All in favor? Okay, it is received unanimously. And I think we're done. Is there anything else, Linda, that we need to do tonight?
No, just a couple of reports that I can provide. One, just to let you know that the chair and I did participate in a focus group session with the University of Connecticut. They are seeking a designation, and I'm going to get the actual name of this wrong, but essentially a designation related to community economic development. And so they are seeking input as to how they could do better. And information on what they already do and how they could do better. So Paul and I did participate in one of those focus groups last week. We are going to be working potentially on a grant application through the Community Challenge Grant Program with DECD, so stay tuned on that. And in case you missed it, we did have the unveiling of our new Martin Luther King Jr. Mural at the community center. So I encourage everybody to stop by. Carlita, I believe you were part of that ceremony. I am sorry to have missed it, but I will say I working here, I was lucky enough to actually see it continue to kind of grow and be completed over the last few weeks. And it's been really fascinating to watch the artist at work. And I think it's a great addition to the community center. So please check it out when you have an opportunity. And the only other report I have is that over the last two meetings for the town council has created a standing affordable housing committee to help implement the town's affordable housing plan, as well as adopted an ordinance establishing a housing trust fund. So I want to thank, the commission for all of your work on the affordable housing issues. We are not done. There's a lot of work to yet be done, but there will be, as I said, a standing committee established that will be working with the town council and providing guidance on priorities, as well as helping to make recommendations on applications for funding from the trust fund when we have funds in the trust fund. So step one was to create it. Now we have to actually fund it and then implement. But that is my report for the evening.
Very good. So we are adjourned at 9:18 p.m. Thank you all for coming out. Good to have you with us, Craig. We'll see you soon.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Stay safe.
Night.